President Donald Trump just indicted for his alleged efforts to claim that he won the 2020 election, specifically in Georgia. It's worth reflecting on another political figure candidate who also persisted in a belief that she had won a Georgian election. Let's watch this supercut.
I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won.
But I didn't lose. I got the votes. But we won't know exactly how many because of how they cheated.
I did win my election. I just didn't get to have the job.
We were robbed of an election.
Using the word rigged, using the word steal, do you think it's dangerous going into 2020?
I don't, because we can actually back it up. And so in response to what I believe was a stolen election, and I'm not saying they stole it from me, they stole it from the voters of Georgia. In fact, someone outside asked if I'm ever going to concede. The answer is no.
This is not a speech of concession. Because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. And I will not concede because the erosion of our democracy is not right.
People are going to make you mad. They're going to hurt your feelings. They're going to steal your election. It was not a free and fair election. I think the election was stolen from the people of Georgia. I believe it was stolen from the voters.
Thousands of Georgians had their voices stolen because they were not able to cast ballots. And they cannot be guaranteed that their votes will be counted in 2020 if we don't do this right.
So it is certainly the case that there was not just in the context of Georgia a lot of rhetoric about how votes were stolen, et cetera, which were not borne out, by the way, by any of the lawsuits that she was pursuing and all of this time following her loss, lawsuits that came under scrutiny because she employed a law firm that got millions of dollars of donations that happened to be run by one of her personal friends from law school. There was some suggestion of enrichment and all of that. The point of this is that none of it actually bore out. There was no verdict in her favor that demonstrated election fraud similar to Trump. In addition to all of this, there was, of course, all of the Russiagate stuff, which Glenn Greenwald recently actually pointed out in a tweet thread this morning, talking about how toxic the disinformation campaign around Russiagate was, even though there was zero credibility behind it. And so I think people are right to say there's a lot of hypocrisy when Trump making these kind of arguments was framed as election nihilism and all of this stuff, whereas liberals saw it as vindicating a real civil rights violation that was afoot. But it is also important to point out that what Trump is being charged with right now in these indictments is not saying all of that stuff, which you can think it's inappropriate when Trump says it, inappropriate when Stacey Abrams says it, and that it's all bad. The difference between how they're being treated by the law right now is that there's no evidence that Stacey Abrams tried to tamper with the certification of the election, the allegations of forgery and the like that Trump is facing right now in this criminal conspiracy, submitting allegedly knowingly false slates of electors, trying to call up election officials and get them to find votes and change election results. That is the difference, I think, between those two.
Let's concede for the sake of argument that Trump's actions went further and potentially, allegedly, into criminal actions in the way nothing Stacey Abrams said did. It still remains the case that Stacey Abrams was despite making all those claims we just showed, remained in remarkable good standing with the Democratic Party and the mainstream media. She ran again, right? These were claims she made after her 2018 election. She delivered the State of the Union response after that. She was on magazine covers after that. She was invited to be, she was in Star Trek, your show. She was presented as the Emperor of Earth or the President of Earth or something because she's such from a liberal mindset, such an uncontroversial political figure, despite saying all those things. So that's why this whole I think you have to forgive people for wondering or rolling their eyes at this whole threat to integrity of elections and democracy when people who made all these claims on the Democratic side have suffered no reputational harm from liberals.
And Trump has suffered no reputational harms if you're judging it on the basis of can he get a hearing on Fox News, does he get favorable coverage in conservative media, Newsmax or whatever, then yeah. The Republicans continue to like Trump despite election denial claims. Liberals continue to like Stacey Abrams. America is partisan. What do you know? But, I do think that you're right that liberals are the ones that are making the allegation that those kind of claims are inherently anti-democratic and dangerous. They need to look in the mirror and revise whether or not they want to hold firm with that. Because
Hillary accused people of being like, Russian. It was New Red Scare, Russian sympathizers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
James Carville just said that without any basis, Jill Stein was a Russian agent on TV like earlier this month, or maybe the end of last month. So I completely agree. But as you've pointed out, and so many Republicans have been pointing out, as Donald Trump has faced the federal indictment on electioneering charges, that what he said is largely protected by free speech, that the statements on 1/6 at the Capitol or various statements saying that he thought he won, those in and of themselves aren't the violation. And I do think that Democrats really messed up in not being more specific and more guided by the law as they made their criticisms of Donald Trump over the last few years. Because what we're seeing now is that there is a there, many legal experts say, with these last two indictments, and it's precisely because the focus is not on the speech, but on this alleged criminal conspiracy to overturn the election results by creating confusion by submitting two fake slates of electors. I mean, the level of that scheme, there was testimony from some of the Republicans that were involved in one scheme where to certify a slate of electors, there were state rules that required them to do it in a state house. And so there was a discussion about, well, how do we do this without it being known that we're putting forward a fake slate of electors when the real slate of electors is meeting in the building? Are we going to stay overnight? Are we going to hide in secret so that we can? Those are obviously fraudulent behaviors.
That's the kind of thing that is going to end up being, regardless of what you think about it, is going to be a actual legal issue. I mean, like, you can have your feelings that shouldn't count against them or whatever, but the reality is that's going to be a very difficult thing for Team Trump to overcome.
And to be clear, if Stacey Abrams, if someone finds out that Stacey Abrams or Hillary Clinton or anybody else was really trying to rig elections in those ways, I definitely think they should be locked up, prosecuted as well. But that is a meaningful difference that people are going to have to contend with on the right.
Oh, I bet they'd get right after her for that. I bet that'd be
well, it's been
real
Trump's DOJ. Robby, Trump had 4 years in office where he could have prosecuted all those people. He was the one that said he was running on lock her up, and he didn't lock her up. So at a certain point, another failed Trump promise? I don't know. Or was there not a there? Was there not enough to actually lock her up? It was an interesting question, especially if he manages to get back into the White House again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lock anyone up for speech, no matter how wrong-headed, but the harmful narrative that Stacey Abrams, whatever, it's funny that she says this over and over and over again in the face of two audiences who are so, oh my God, the worst crime on earth you could commit would be to deny an election, the media tells me, and that's exactly what she's doing. But the Hillary's level of self-denial really did promulgate a lie that did have harmful policy consequences in how we've thought about social media over the last several years. The widespread attribution of so-called misinformation on the platforms, on Facebook in particular, as the reason for everything that's gone wrong in our society.
Yeah. And Russian
all
influence.
Back that Russian influence that was just not, and that talking point, one that was taken up by so-called security experts, foreign influence, all these experts. I mean, part of the blind faith the media has in experts really came into sharp focus during that whole episode, and then COVID, took it to the next to the big leagues, really. Yeah. But the media was already in that mindset because of a chain of events that starts with Hillary laying total blame on Vladimir Putin and Mark Zuckerberg.
It's why they censored the Hunter Biden laptop in the first instance.
Yes.
That's what we learned from those Twitter file emails, that they were basically so spooked by the specter of Russian information that they didn't really even have to be asked or pushed that hard to censor the Biden laptop stuff.
Yeah, very, very harmful. Well, that does it for us for today. Tomorrow on Rising, Briahna and I will be back bringing you the biggest news of the day.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. For those of you who prefer to listen while you're on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Did you enjoy the first day of, I won't say what age you are, but
it's okay, I'm a big girl. It's on Wikipedia. I'm grateful to be going for another turn around the sun, Robby. That's all I've got at this point.
It's all we can look forward to, I guess.
All right, see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.